across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wonder why my mind keeps on spinning. This isn't how living to me was told.
Masons are told that they symbolize that they once decorated the front entrance to King Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, but I believe that this is just a dead-end story. It doesn't lead anywhere. It doesn't teach you anything. In truth, the Masonic twin pillars form what I believe are the very foundations of the ancient universal religion that I talked about. How? Well, look at the tracing board. Notice how the pillar on the right-hand side, which is called Jachin, is capped by the sun. And the left-hand pillar on the left side, obviously called Boaz, is capped by the moon. This duality of the sun and moon tell us something critically important. All the world's cultures perceive the sun and moon as perfect opposites, as I'm sure many of you know. In every culture, a swastika symbol was used to symbolize this idea. Every culture, same concept. A swastika has two S's. One S is a symbol of the sun, and the other S is a symbol of the moon. The sun and moon are perfect opposites according to a law in nature that we can all understand. The sun rules the day, the moon rules the night. The day brings light, the night brings dark. The light brings hot, the dark brings cold. The hot brings dry, the cold brings moist. The day symbolizes life, the night symbolizes death. Life is embraced as good, but death is feared as evil. Now, this is a naturally occurring pairs of opposites that are happening here. And by this chain of associations, the sun and moon engender and denote all the pairs of opposites in our world, in our universe. Now, here's something interesting. The sun and moon shine on average 12 hours out of 24 each, daily. That's half each. That's exactly half each, right? And here's something that honestly, it changed my life, this next little bit of information. When viewed from Earth, the sun and full moon appear to be identically sized in our sky, as if these twin heavenly bodies are perfect opposites. The sun is much bigger, obviously, but the moon is much closer. So when viewed from Earth, they're the exact same size. So if you put this all together, this is not a marvelous coincidence, the way astronomers say, but really what it is, it's evidence of the mystical nature, in my opinion, the mystical nature of human existence. Ancient Chinese philosophers knew this well. Their Taijitu symbol, which we call the yin-yang, depicts the sun and full moon together in one circle. The yin, or full moon, covers half the circle. The yang, or sun, covers the other half. And now think of this in terms of the tracing board. The sun crowns the Jachin pillar, that's yang. The moon crowns the Boaz pillar, that's yin. Thus, the Jachin and Boaz pillars of Freemasonry, like the yin-yang symbol, stand for the doctrine of duality, the pairs of opposites. And this is something that Wilmshurst, the author I quoted before, also knew. He said, many centuries before our Bible was written, the two pillars were used in temples. They stand for what is known as the pairs of opposites. Everything in nature is dual and can only be known in contrast with its opposite. And here's a quote from an interesting author named Warren Kenton, whose work is often cited by Prince Charles. He said, erected by the Masons, the west front of each church had two towers representing the twin columns, the masculine and feminine aspects, flowing down from heaven, called in Chartres Cathedral the Sun and Moon Towers. Now this is interesting because here, Kenton points out something that's a little bit more tangible for us to look at. We have the two towers on Chartres Cathedral. The right-hand tower is capped by an image of the sun, and the left-hand by an image of the moon. And this is referring to what Kenton calls, quote, the masculine and feminine aspects. That's because man and woman, like every other pair of opposite, is encapsulated by this doctrine. We're told by the early 20th century author Claude Bragdon, man, like the sun, is lord of the day. Woman is subject to the lunar rhythm. The Masonic guilds of the Middle Ages were custodians of the esoteric. The north or right-hand tower, the man's side, was called the sacred male pillar, Jachin, and the south or left-hand tower, the woman's side, the sacred female pillar, Boaz. And we see this on the Grand Master Certificate of the 16th century heretic Giordano Bruno, who was burned at the stake in the year 1600 for heresy. We have a male pillar crowned by the sun on the right side facing us, and a female pillar crowned by the moon on the left side facing us. Again, this matches the twin towers of Gothic cathedrals. But why is the pair of opposites teaching so important? Why is it important that we have duality? What does it exactly mean? What does this wisdom mean to you and me? And the answer is, we live inside the universe, not separated from it. Thus, we too are formed by opposites. Our bodies are made from the same pairs of opposites as the universe, the light and the dark, the good and the evil, the right and the wrong, etc. Shakespeare said, "Our life is a mingled yarn, good and evil together." And the ancients believed this wholeheartedly. They believed the right side of our body was male and solar, and the left side was female and lunar. And again, Claude Bragdon says, though essentially a unit, there's a well-marked division into right and left. We have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 ears, 2 eyes. Moreover, the terms of such pairs are masculine and feminine with respect to each other, one being active and the other passive. So no human, of course, is completely one gender or the other. Despite our physical characteristics, we all possess both masculine and feminine. Manly Hall was a Masonic author, and he noticed this, and he said, in ancient times, men fought with their right arms, and they defended with their left arms. The right side of the body was considered masculine, and the left side feminine. So this portrait appeared in an esoteric manuscript in the 1400s. It's a 2-headed human, a male on the right holding the sun, and a female on the left holding the moon. This is an esoteric portrait of you. It reveals the true makeup of a human being, half male, half female. And this explains the angel on our right shoulder telling us to do good, and the demon on our left shoulder telling us to do evil. And that's something that we find in a lot of different cultures till today. There's good and evil in the world, and that means there's good and evil in all of us. Now, here's the question. Is that our fate? To be ruled by yin and yang, to be tossed about left and right, to be so off balance that we don't know who we are and we can't find our center? No. The answer that the ancient philosophers said was no. And we can transcend this duality. How do we do that? Well, we do that according to the Freemasons and according to the people who preserved this ancient wisdom. We do that using the Masonic number 3. And remember I said before, 3 is the key number in Freemasonry. The Masonic 3 teaches that we're more than just the twin opposing halves of an animal body. These twin halves don't constitute the whole human being. Only the physical part, the material part, the part that lives and dies on earth. The Masonic 3 teaches that deep down there's a spiritual part. And this third part, this spiritual part, encompasses both sides of the duality. And it can be found only through the union of the twin opposing halves. And this is, again, what I said before, the Latin term coincidentia oppositorum, or the pairs of opposites, the balance point of the opposites, as I mentioned before. And I'll explain now how the ancients knew this. They knew it because you could see it in their symbols. Look at the Taijitu. You have yin and yang, and they represent the physical sides of the human body. But now look, yin and yang are both encapsulated inside of a giant circle. Okay, a lot of people miss that circle. They just see, oh, it's yin and yang. Yeah, but what about the third part? The most important part of this is the circle. The circle encompasses both yin and yang. And the circle symbolizes eternity, because with no beginning and no end, a circle has always symbolized eternity to all ancient civilizations. The circle, according to Freemasons, is a symbol of your soul. It's called Tao in Chinese thought. And the circle is the part of you out of which all existence arises. and inside of which the pairs of opposites live and move and have their being. The ancient Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu says, "He who follows the Tao is one with the Tao. Being at one with the Tao is eternal. Though the body dies, the Tao will never pass away." The yin-yang is in fact a three-part symbol, as I just was mentioning. It has three parts. It's made of twin dualities, yin and yang, with the circle being the third part, the Tao being the third part. And this is the higher unity that yin and yang are encompassed in. And Lao Tzu tells us that as well. He says, the Chinese Trinity, being the duality of yin and yang organized into a higher unity, is regarded as the source of all existence. And its symbol, the yin yang, possesses special significance for the Chinese thought, for the Chinese heart. And so this idea that a third force of unity ties together twin opposites is central in Freemasonry. We find it in Masonic thought and in Masonic architecture too. In Freemasonry, though, its symbol is not a circle like it is in Taoism, encompassing the yin-yang. In Freemasonry, its symbol is the triangle. The triangle that unites the twin pillars Jachin on one side and Boaz on the other. In precisely the same way, the circle unites yin and yang. And we could say that in another way. The triangle's apex transcends its two lower points, just as your soul transcends the two animal halves of your body. And this is because your soul is older than and higher than your body. Your soul is the source of your body. Think of the story of the Garden of Eden, the fall. We've fallen after eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We've fallen down into the lower world of duality. We've fallen from our higher spiritual home in the heavens, and we've landed in a world of opposites. And this concept is rampant in Masonic writers of the 19th and early 20th century, including John Yarker, who said, according to this mystic doctrine, all souls have pre-existence and have descended from the spiritual world into the earthly prison of the body. In other words, you're divine already. You existed before your body's birth, and you'll survive your body's death. You're more than just a physical body. You're a soul, and in authentic Freemasonry, and in these teachings, in this Hermetic wisdom, being a soul means being a god. A soul is a god. You are a god. A fallen god, but a god just the same. Having fallen, you are now, in a sense, imprisoned by the body, which mimics the duality of the universe which your body temporarily lives in. And the esoteric scholar Alvin Boyd Kuhn said that. He said, man is a god in the body of an animal, according to the pronouncement of ancient philosophy. He's absolutely right, because the ancient philosophers talked about this. They all did. You find the same concepts that you find in Greek philosophy, in Hinduism. You find it in Taoism. You find it in religions essentially all over the world. The famous 19th century essayist Ralph Waldo Emerson, who's one of my favorites, said, a man is a god in ruins. And the famous 19th century French poet Alphonse de Lamartine said, limited in his nature, infinite in his desire, man is a fallen god who remembers heaven. I thought that was a profound quote when I first came across it. Man is fallen because, in a sense, your body is not your true home. It's an imperfect and transitory vehicle. It's taught in ancient philosophy that your body imprisons your soul, because think about it, your body has to be cared for. In order to survive, your body has to constantly breathe, eat, drink, maintain a constant temperature, fight disease. Even if your body can endure for decades, death will eventually destroy it. So for the ancients, your fall into a body was somewhat perceived as a tragedy. The 19th century author Olympus Gregory wrote, the Platonists in general believed in a pre-existent state in which all souls had sinned and lost their wings, and so they sank into these bodies, partly as a punishment for former follies. It means you've descended so deeply into the material world that you've lost sight of your God self, of your spiritual self. You're so enwrapped in matter that you have amnesia of who you really are. And that's the God within you. So the important part of the Masonic teachings that really touched me the most was that despite all this, you can use the number 3 to sort of take back who you really are. Remember who you really are. And you do this by turning on the soul. You know that your soul is being covered over by your body, but if you balance the opposites, if you transcend the opposites, you can actually find that center between them. And that's the third force. That's the coincidentia oppositorum. And you find this in, again, all the traditions, and especially in the magical traditions. We're told by Israel Regardie, who was a student of the magician Aleister Crowley, only in the reconciliation of opposing forces is the pathway made to true occult knowledge and practical power. In other words, you have to join your right and left sides. You have to join your male and female halves, and you'll find what you're seeking. And this is what we're told in the aphorisms of Zosimos. When you join the opposites, a mystical awakening occurs. It involves our suddenly becoming aware of an organ and human faculty that we didn't know we really had. And we can see that hidden organ on this Masonic tracing board. It's very similar to the Masonic tracing board I showed you earlier. It depicts what seems to be an ancient pagan temple, and that's because it reveals an ancient pagan teaching. First, look at the twin pillars, Jachin and Boaz. They're aligned with the sun and moon directly above them. Now, look at the tops of the twin pillars. They both form the lower two halves of a triangle. Third, look at the apex of that triangle and notice the luminous eye directly above it. Why an eye? The answer is when you unite the opposites, you suddenly become illuminated, awakened. You suddenly become whole again. And when this happens, a mysterious hidden eye opens within you. Plato called it the eye of the soul, and the soul is who you really are. And we see this here in an old Masonic temple in Prague, Czechoslovakia. Many Freemasons believe incorrectly that this is the eye of the God of the Bible. But according to Plato, in every man there's an eye of the soul, which is far more precious than 10,000 bodily eyes, for by it alone is truth seen. The eye of the soul is naturally adapted to be resuscitated and excited by the mathematical discipline. Excuse me. Located in the center of our brains, Plato's eye of the soul has historically been called the divine's eye, the mind's eye, the cyclopean eye. And that's a whole nother lecture where we could talk about the cyclopean ruins. They're very advanced. They're very powerful. I think it has something to do with the third eye. The real name of it is the third eye. And the awakened third eye endows its possessor with higher consciousness. And curiously, the third eye is not even mentioned in Western medicine. Our history books carry a very small description of it. They call it the pineal gland. In Webster's dictionary, only has a couple of sentences devoted to it, calling it an appendage of the brain. It has the structure of an eye, and it's variously postulated to be a vestigial third eye, or even a seat of the soul. And there you have a remnant of the teaching. They're calling it a seat of the soul. Awakening the third eye is a custom in Asia to this day, in the Hindu religions, Buddhism. Here, the third eye is called Urna and Trinetra. It's marked by a dot on the forehead. It's called the Ajna chakra. It's one of the 7 chakras that are aligned in our spinal column, going from the pelvis to the top of the head. I'm sure you've all heard of them before. All the chakras are connected from the lowest to the highest through a central channel called the Sushumna. And 2 opposing channels, the Ida and Pingala, run to the left and right of the Sushumna. Negatively charged Ida is our left channel, that's the lunar and feminine channel. Positively charged Pingala is our right channel, that's our solar and masculine channel. And here you can see that the Ida and Pingala channels of Hinduism, of Kundalini Yoga, match up perfectly with the Jachin and Boaz columns and the yin and yang of Taoism. And so you're starting to see that they're all the same. It's teaching the same concepts everywhere. The art of Kundalini Yoga is personified on this ancient megalithic Hindu statue. It depicts a male on one side, a female on the other, both balanced in the middle by the god Shiva. And the awakened third eye is visible. The late Dr. Lee Sanella, who was the co-founder of the Kundalini Clinic in California, says that Kundalini is the real cause of all the so-called spiritual and psychic phenomena. The secret origin of all esoteric and occult doctrines, the master key to the unsolved mystery of creation, the inexhaustible source of philosophy, art, and science, and the fountainhead of all religious faiths, past, present, and future. And so during my studies, I came to believe that Kundalini Yoga, this awakening of the third eye by balancing the Jaikin and Boaz, sun and moon, played a key role in the great work of all the secret societies, not just Freemasonry. And here are some images of what I believe is the awakened third eye on some Oddfellows regalia. The Masonic triangle thus denotes more than just balancing life's dualities. It stands for the awakened third eye that occurs when life's dualities are balanced. And I want to show you a cool quote from Carl Jung. He says, "Unfortunately, our Western mind, lacking all culture in this respect, has never yet devised a concept or even a name for the union of opposites through the middle path, that most fundamental item of inward experience. It's at once the most individual fact and the most universal, the most legitimate fulfillment of the meaning of an individual's life." 1918, Dr. George Washington Carey. "The all-seeing eye, this is the eye of Freemasonry, the third eye. While I'm credibly informed that few Masons understand their own symbols, the fact remains that they use them." And let's return now to the Gothic.
You can easily bend the limbs, but when that tree gets deep rooted and grows, if you try to bend the limb, it'll break. And so you're looking at these baby boomers, and the coding and programming is so embedded in them for so many years that it's they've become rooted trees. They've grown and they've got stiff bark, and you can't really bend those limbs. They'll just snap. And a lot of them aren't ready for that information. So you have to just, when I tell people who always ask me, how do I get my family members to wake up, and I said, you just be the light. You just do what you do. Don't put pressure on them. Every now and then you may drop a gentle seed, and that's about it. And just let them look at your life and how you're moving. Eventually they may start to ask some questions. Right. And then you can answer the question and walk away. Don't go too deep again. Just a little bit at baby steps, a little bit at a time. Some of them will come along, some of them may not. Just be happy that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're finding yourself. And then others will also see how you're moving and how you're living through this matrix. And then they will then begin to ask you questions. And some people will jump right on in with you, full blown. Some people will take time. It's a gradual process, but like you say, you can't overdo it.
Everybody's in their own game.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
by
right.
Example. Just lead by example. If it's not for you, it's not for you. If it's
right,
like,
and you know them by their fruit.
Yes. Right. Right.
It's like, did we miss that message? Like, you know people by their fruit, meaning their actions show you who they are.
Exactly.
So that whole I'm woke because you. So here it is. Let's go back. I was about to go full into that, which is okay. You got the information. You got all this knowledge. Neo, when he went, he got into the chair, got the thing plugged into him, and he was sitting there for hours just downloading information, right? And he said, and he told Morpheus, "I know Kung Fu." Morpheus said, "What? Show me."
Right.
Oh, right. You know. Show me.
Exactly.
Right. It's the action that proves it.
So he went in that simulation again, showing me new Kung Fu. And what did Morpheus do? He whipped his ass.
Yep. Beat him down.
He beat him down. He's training him the whole way. Yeah, you learn some information, but you can't apply it.
Until you apply that information, it's not real. It's not in this realm. It doesn't exist. It just exists in your mind.
Yes.
Until you apply it.
Absolutely. That happens to me all the time. People come to church.